Good morning, everybody. This is our astrology weather forecast for October 28th, 2025. And change is in the air. We've got some easy trines in place. The moon changes signs. And we have the addition of an interstellar object that is at the closest proximity it's going to be to the sun for the next 4 days. So there's a few things that are afoot. So the moon is in, let me grab my card here. I have to write it down because it is early for me. The moon is in Capricorn until 11:55 Eastern time. And then it enters Aquarius, so we have a split in the mood. It's an interesting day when that occurs. There's a shift in the undercurrent. Kind of like when you are floating in the ocean or going down a river and you're being carried one way, and then there's a shift, gradual sometimes, and sometimes not. Sometimes it's very distinct from one current flow to another. That's what we get on these days when the moon changes signs in the middle of the day. Particularly at the times of the day when we're busy, when we're very active. They can be more noticeable than, say, the downtime in the evening, where you are less active and less in the mode of being responsive. That's where the shift from one sign to the other can be more subtle because there isn't as much for it to bounce off of in the ticking minutes in the days of our lives. So we have this undercurrent of seeking safety through regularity and predictability with the moon going through Capricorn. And then we become more curious. This leads us into more of an open state, more of a curious state, and sometimes more of an erratic state as the moon does move into Aquarius. That's important because we have some layered things going on in terms of transits that are bringing in changes. And because these are trines that are involved, things can happen very, very quickly. We typically associate trines with the best outcomes. Sometimes that's not the case. It's not leading to one thing or another. It doesn't have a it's not personal. Trines are not respecters of beings. I think we forget that with them. It's the lack of friction, the lack of holdback that can lead to, the very best of things, depending on what it is that's trying. And sometimes it brings in a flood or a flow that, when you look at it in the context of what it is that's trying and what is that contributing to, what's the outcome, what's already going on here. That's where trines can be a little interesting to interpret, and they have more nuance than traditionally we believe. So we have Mercury in a trine to Neptune today, and we have Mars in a trine to Jupiter. This is what is so interesting. Mercury does continue to become more trine. It increases that flow of openness to being connected to something that is bigger or broader or outside of ourselves. So we all become very tapped into each other in the collective ocean, the collective unconscious, the It's like a bunch of seaweed that has been floating, and it's become somewhat disconnected, and it comes back together and hooks into each other and gels, and it's that ebb of flow of yin and yang, day and night, together and separate. So we have this beautiful connectivity that's coming into play here, and it is in service to exchanging compassion, understanding, being more in step or in rhythm with each other on a larger scale, a social scale, whoever it is that we are hooked into or that we are in communion with or we need to be in flow with, who it is that we come into contact with in our even regular life. This is Mercury stuff. So there's this collective wave of sympathy, empathy, compassion that's also bolstered by or contributed to by the trine between Mars and Jupiter. That means we can act on our collective ideals, what gives us hope. Jupiter's the shared stories that are the collective hanging together of all of our different values that happen within the context of a culture. So, where there's larger cultural values that you want to, that define you, that give you hope, that are your cultural story. Mars being in a trine to that is something that brings us that brings that fighting power, or that what it is that we want, that we're passionate about. What is it that we want to fight for? It brings it into this alignment, this trine alignment, this alignment of ease when it comes to what gives us hope and has us hanging together rather than fighting against each other. So when I pull cards, I always ask, I'm very intentional about what I pull. I don't pull anything on purpose, but I ask for the most appropriate, the most true. I ask for the cards of the day, whatever those might be. It's just uncanny what pops up. There is a paradigm shift that is it's a shift in the wind. It's a shift in the water. And within that, it leads to a larger swelling. Because we have Neptune stuff, we have Jupiter stuff. These are collective planets. A larger swelling over the course of the next months as Neptune backs up in the sign of Pisces. Saturn completes its last months in the sign of Pisces. This is the great exhaustion. This is the great depletion. It's the great disintegration that leads to a new type of future. And we are at the point where we continue to get to choose. So there's a being pushed to the brink that happens when anything comes to 29 degrees Pisces, because that's the very end of the wheel. That's the last degree of the whole natural wheel. We call it the degree of tears. And those can be tears of grief and tears of joy and celebration. And so we have to decide what we're going to give up and sacrifice in terms of old systems and what was regular. That's Saturn. And Neptune in Pisces is a long term, several generations cycle of what it is to be connected to a larger system of compassion. Neptune is interesting. It seeks to enfold and connect to and bring in larger and larger amounts of the collective into more of a, connected, compassionate, humanitarian system. Now, Pisces, Neptune, there's a sweetie. There's two potentials for every sign and every planet. And the evolved side of Pisces, which often comes as a result of disintegration or confusion. The evolved side is it's always a better world. It always leads to a better experience of what it is to be human, because we bring that, the best of us, our ideals. We ground those. And that's the opportunity here with Saturn in Pisces. And see, with Mercury in this beautiful trine to Neptune, that's doing this larger work here over the course of years and months here, because we're getting to the end of it. We only have really till January to where we start the build-up. We are we're getting to the bottom of the barrel here. We're getting to the very end of our rope. And coming to that point where you feel that sense of desperation or tiredness or wanting to give up. And we can do two things with that when we come to that 29th degree, or that rock bottom. We can either give up and say, I can't rise again. I just have to settle for whatever comes. Or we can decide we're going to do the hard work of saving ourselves. And that's where we rise into self-respect. That's where we have this beautiful experience of the individuation process that we've obviously failed, collectively or personally, if we've come to that place of desperation. We're not in we're not clear, or we're not in our power if we're in that place, personally or collectively. So when we realize that, you know what, I can do better than I've been doing, and I can learn, I can change, I can grow, I can do this. That's when that experience of desperation, suffering, contributes to an evolution. And that's where we are at collectively. Is we have to realize that if we don't change ourselves personally, then we are going to continue to get these outcomes. We can't force those changes outside of ourselves. You just have to realize, all right, idiots going to be idiots. And I have to change the way I think and believe. And my concept of reality and compassion, and it's like this whole collective existential crisis that we've been in that's coming to a serious peak here. And on days like this where we have trines, we can look at it like, yeah, it's one of those easy peasy days. No, not always. These can be the days where that door is wide open because we're just like, you know what? Let's just do this. It's just time. It's like an invitation to consequence because there's no fear. It's like an acceptance of the inevitable. So there are certain inevitabilities that are going to come to pass over the next months. And that leads to better possibilities. It doesn't lead to the end of it all. See, the old systems do want you to give up and decide that you just can't. You just can't do what it takes in order to make changes. And they want you to be in a place of desperation because a desperate collective is a controllable collective. You'll just, take what you can get. More and more and more. So we have to look at, what do you deserve? What do I feel like I deserve? Saturn is a big part of that. We'll only accept what we feel like we deserve. And if we're told or believe that we only deserve so much and it's on these conditions, those are all external. That's external Saturn. That's all symptoms of not really embracing the individuation process. So we really have to think about what it is that we're loyal to. And are those loyalties giving us the outcomes that we're looking for? This is a big Saturn and Pisces thing. Saturn is the governance and the regularities, and Pisces is either ultimate truth or deception. It can go either way. And often it's going to be realizing deception, how we deceived ourselves, how we've been deceived, our boundary issues, our lack of individuation, all the things that make up Pisces, because Pisces is a conglomeration, blending of all the other signs and all the other processes that the wheel is talking about from birth to death. So there's a lot to think about in terms of the bubbles that are popping here, because there's a lot of bubbles that are popping throughout this time that we have these very important planets in Pisces, this big erosion, confusion, exhaustion, end of our ropeness. Then we have to decide, are we going to rise? That's going to take unity, and it's going to take being able to be in tune with what is connected or of value. Instead of focusing on what is divisive, we need to look at what it is that we have in common. See, this is what Jupiter teaches us. Mars and Jupiter are trying today. It's easier to let our defenses down, accept some Jupiter truths. Jupiter teaches us that when we travel, yes, Jupiter's travel. It's going outside of what's familiar to us. Collective stories, or gathering more stories, learning about more stories, adventuring. And when we travel, isn't it impressive how, yeah, you do meet up with a lot of differences, but you also realize how much we are the same. So, it's an interesting point in the current of the collective these days. And we also have to prepare for economic erosion, changes, instability, because all the systems that are updating. And until about 2032, we do have to go through this period of this historical squeeze. Because it is that squeeze that is the cleansing process. It makes us personally look at what is my personal responsibility and what can I do in order to be the best contributing factor to where it is that we're going here. We're building the foundation for the age of Aquarius. And that needs to be built on a foundation of clarity. So a lot of this, the age of Aquarius is definitely being capitalized on in ways that are not true or unhealthy or monetized. And we have to be careful about what kind of new visions that we are putting in place. We have to really see through what is probably too good to be true and what promises us easy outcomes, or we can cut corners, and that's old, hard aspects. Because the best foundation is built on, solidity and clarity and acceptance of reality, and also with Neptune, the inclusion of what could be better, not the denial of it. So we can just, put up with whatever. That's just Saturn business that comes back around again, and we'll get another opportunity to level up. But it's so much better if we don't kick the can down the road. Alrighty, guys. See you later.